Major surprises are hinted at in the spoilers for the week of August 4th on The Bold and the Beautiful. Sheila Carter-Sharp will likely begin prying into Lee Finnegan's secrets. Fans can anticipate. Brooke Logan is saved from a waterfall by Rich Forrester in the meanwhile. Let's discuss the upcoming events in the CBS soap opera as you continue reading. Nick Marone's play about romance. First, let's talk about Nick Marone, who had intended to meet Brooke in Italy. There was a ring box on the Seaman as well, but he encountered various difficulties. His boat first required some sort of maintenance, which was not completed in a timely manner. After that, he got a ride from someone. Nick had to deal with an enraged Eric Forrester, and then Ridge when he arrived at the fashion show in Capri. The adventure of Brooke Logan. Ridge has been informed by Brooke that she cannot act as though the pain has stopped. She's also fed up with Ridge's ping-pong act. When the blonde finally had enough, she broke down totally. Even though Brooke does occasionally see Ridge, perhaps this may encourage her to start over with Nick. Brooke and Nick embark on an adventure of some sort. Despite Nick's best efforts, Brooke eventually ends up in the water. The valor of Ridge Forrester. Surprisingly, Ridge saves Brooke instead of Nick. Ridge will come to understand that he cannot survive without Brooke as a result of this rescue. Although that's good to hear, Brooke ought to move on. This type of plot is poisonous, not charming. But since it's a soap opera, Ridge will probably get back together after the water rescue. Nick and Taylor Hayes will be crushed as a result. Is it possible that Nick and Taylor are developing a relationship of their own? How is Hope Logan going to handle Daphne Rose's comeback? August 4, 2025 week. Additionally, fans should observe Sheila's growing suspicion of Lee's actions with Luna Nozawa. Sheila might eventually begin looking into Lee, and might even follow her. Sheila will probably discover that Lee is covertly caring for an unconscious Luna. But will Lee and Sheila work together? Or will something else happen? Finn will continue to investigate Liam Spencer's miracle, while Steffi Forrester Finnegan is away with the children. Let's see what happens with this plot line, as it appears that Grace Buckingham has already made some blunders. Here are spoilers for Thursday, July 31st, 2025's episode of The Bold and the Beautiful. Fans might anticipate Sheila Carter-Sharp being wary of Lee Finnegan. A brawl breaks out between Rich Forrester and Nick Marone. Brooke Logan also experiences nostalgia. Let's discuss the upcoming events in the CBS soap opera as you continue reading. The nostalgic Brooke Logan. Brooke and Ridge had their photos taken by the press following the fashion show. For a while Brooke cooperated. But Brooke left when a reporter inquired about Ridge and Taylor Hayes' engagement. She was finally tired and brutally honest as Ridge sped after her. She can no longer endure the on and off dynamics which are killing her. Ridge refused to let Brooke go, even though she felt obliged to. Brooke will now consider all of the memories connected to Italy. Rich Forrester versus Nick Marone. In order to locate Brooke, Nick just so happened to get a ride to Capri. But Nick wasn't welcome there, according to Eric Forrester. Nick isn't one to accept rejection. The idea that Nick and Ridge will fight is then hinted at. Suspects of Sheila Carter-Sharp. According to Thursday, July 31st spoilers on The Bold and the Beautiful, Sheila will believe Lee is concealing something regarding Luna. When the waitress attempted to bid farewell for the last time, Lee informed her that the service had already been completed. Lee made the same statement following John Finnegan's fictitious demise. Even the sight of Luna's grave is beyond Sheila's grasp. She is becoming skeptical just based on it. Sheila's realization that Luna might not be dead at all grows as she considers the situation more. The assistance of Deacon Sharp. Deacon is aware that Sheila is grieving, even if he has affections for Luna. Deacon will make an effort to be a decent husband and help his wife through her grief. Deacon won't have an easy time though, particularly because Luna was the one who killed Paul Hollister and Tom Starr. Deacon couldn't bring himself to see Luna as anything other than a heartless murderer, because he was close to both of those men. Additionally, there have to be updates regarding Liam Spencer's recuperation. Finn is looking into it, but keep an eye out because Grace Buckingham has already made several careless errors. On Thursday, July 31st, 2025, which narrative are you most excited to see? When Sheila Snoops parked into the little parking lot behind the Quiet Town Library on a Tuesday morning, suspicion was in the air. Sheila, who is more famous for solving town mysteries than selling novels, got out of her old Jeep and immediately looked around the alley. Her intuition, developed from years of interfering in both trivial and dangerous issues, warned her that something out of the ordinary was happening. And Sheila rarely made a mistake with her instincts. Brooke Langley had failed to arrive at work. Once more. Normally, Sheila wouldn't be alarmed by it because she valued private time, especially for a lady healing from a humiliating and public breakup. However, this was the third consecutive day. Don't text. No phone calls. Not even a picture of her coffee in the morning on Instagram. Brooke had never heard of that. Sheila checked her phone, but there was still no response. There was a problem. Beyond being the town's favorite florist with a knack for mismatched flowers, Brooke was more than that. Sheila needed to vent her crazy notions over iced coffee, and she was a terrific listener, friendly and trustworthy. She also never disappeared. Sheila turned back to her Jeep and picked up her tote bag, which she liked to refer to as her emergency stash, because it had a secret compartment. It had a multi-tool, pepper spray, a flashlight, a tiny first aid kit, and a notepad with her own brief notes about recent events in the area. Even though no one had asked Sheila to look for Brooke, she was determined to do so if she went missing. Brooke's modest one-story home, with its overflowing flower boxes and a little crooked wind chime, was a few blocks down, past the antique shop and the bakery that continued to sell spring delicacies in spite of the August heat. Sheila moved progressively closer, all senses alert. There isn't a car in the driveway. The curtains are drawn. Strangely, the porch light was still on. She knocked. Waited. Once more I knocked. Nothing. Sheila leaned over and looked at the doormat. A tiny piece of folded paper was half tucked under. Carefully she opened it. There was only one line, scribbled in Brooke's characteristically loopy handwriting. Tell Nick if I'm gone for too long. Sheila scowled. Nick? Like Nick Halstead? Up until recently, Brooke's ex-boyfriend was a strong candidate for most likely to ghost after 3 months of intense eye contact. The dude did not appeal to Sheila. Sure, he was charming, dashing in a brooding, secret-loving literary way, but when he abruptly left town, Brooke was distraught. And she wanted to tell him now? Brooke had obviously left this message in a hurry, whatever was going on. And in spite of everything, she obviously trusted Nick. Sheila straightened and groaned. A visit to the prodigal heartbreaker is in order. It had been more than 6 months since Nick was last spotted in the city. As usual, there had been rumors. According to some, he traveled to Europe in order to write a book. He had allegedly made a vow of silence in a mountain retreat, according to others. One particularly strange hypothesis Sheila had heard included FBI covert activity, but she had noted it as low probability in her notes. She was only certain that Nick had returned a week ago, and had remained eerily quiet ever since. A rented cabin on the outskirts of Wren Hollow, nestled under a canopy of birch and cedar, served as his temporary home. Sheila didn't bother knocking when she got there. She used the flat of her hand to rap on the door. It opened in a matter of seconds. Nick didn't appear to have slept. Eyes vacant, beard longer than she remembered, shirt crumpled. He didn't appear to be a man who wrote poetry. He appeared to be a haunted man. Sheila, he murmured in a raspy voice. You located the note. You are aware that Brooke is missing? Her eyes narrowed as she asked. He spoke too hastily when he said, She's not missing. That proved it. There was clearly a problem. Pushing past him, Sheila entered the home. It smelt of old paper, coffee, and pine. Photographs and notebooks were all over the table. Brooke was shown by a few. In one, she was seen standing next to a man Sheila had never seen before. He had broad shoulders, sunglasses, and a military stance. Sheila turned to him and added, She left you a note. Nick, she's gone. And you must tell me right away if you know anything. Nick appeared to want to disappear into the wood-paneled walls as he ran a hand through his hair. Then he motioned for her to take a seat. At last, he replied, She called me 2 nights ago. Claimed that she was afraid after discovering something large. He hesitated, but she didn't want to involve anyone else. She had faith in me. Sheila yelled. That's rich, considering you disappeared on her. I understand, Nick said. I made a mistake. But it was because of her that I returned. Because I understood that I couldn't avoid it. I was going to ask her to start over and tell her that. Sheila hardly softened. What did she find? After hesitating once again, he took a folded map out of the kitchen drawer. It was an old and tattered county zoning blueprint. A series of letters and numbers were written next to several spots that were designated in red ink. One of them was an abandoned farm on the outskirts of town, and Sheila knew it. Nick remarked. She believed that the old properties were being used for illicit purposes. Smuggling and drugs are possibly worse. She was pursuing a person. Who? Sheila inquired. Nick gave one of the pictures a tap. The guy with the sunglasses. She claimed to have contacts, but she never gave me his name. And if she vanished, it was because she approached too closely. Sheila felt her heart race. What kept you from calling the police? Don't, she said. She had no faith in them. Said that there might be a compromised member of the force. Sheila took a deep breath. All of a sudden, her community no longer felt little or secure. They came up with a plan. Brooke had been last seen at the old Dunning farm, and by dusk, Sheila and Nick were parked a mile away. The barn stood out in the distance, its rusting roof covered in long shadows from the moon. From within came a dim glimmer. There was a person present. They remained low in the dense grass and proceeded in silence. Sheila heard muffled voices closer now. She listened with difficulty. She looked at the papers. One voice, male and irritated, remarked, "She made a copy." Another voice answered, "Then we have to locate it. The copy is the issue, but she won't speak." Sheila's heartbeat accelerated. Brooke was still alive. Being detained. Perhaps in that barn. Nick gestured to a side door that was just about to hang. They moved on together, each stride sounding like a yell in the quiet. Dust and mildew filled the air inside. On a wooden container, a lantern was burning. Brooke was tied to a chair in the far corner. Sheila made a snap decision. She sprang forward, using one hand to cut the ropes and the other to gently cover Brooke's lips. When Brooke realized who had arrived, her eyes flared and then softened with relief. Nick's muscles tensed as he stood guard, the sounds growing louder, closer. Now is not the time for subtlety. They rushed for the trees through the side entrance, Brooke free. There were gunshots. Sheila dodged and pulled Brooke along. They ran into the trees, Nick turning to protect them both. They didn't stop, panting, until they had crossed the creek and stumbled upon the old ranger route. Then Brooke fell against a tree. She muttered, her eyes meeting Nick's. "You came," he remarked. "I never stopped caring. I simply had no idea how to make it better." Up until now. They had a genuine and unfiltered time together before Sheila cleared her throat. "Those guys are going to reassemble quickly, and I hate to break this historic moment." Brooke took a tiny flash drive out of Sheila's boot when they got back to her Jeep. "Everything is here. Images and records. Names." Nick handled it calmly. "We're going public. And quickly." Nick's old acquaintance, an investigative journalist, and Sheila's media contacts had what they needed in a matter of hours. The arrest started the following morning. The man in the sunglasses, 3 businesspeople and 2 officers. 1 courageous florist and 2 unlikely partners revealed, routed and crushed a trafficking gang. Brooke bounced back gracefully but slowly. With flowers as vibrant and striking as ever, her store reopened. People flocked there, not to gossip but to express their gratitude. Quietly enjoying her status as the town's actual Nancy Drew, Sheila went back to her library. For his part, Nick remained. He showed up, not just lingered. With coffee. With treks in the dark. With a calm, unblinking stare that Brooke had never seen before. The man who had returned, not merely the one who had left. Weeks later, Brooke came home one evening to find fairy lights in her garden. Wearing a dark blue shirt, Nick stood there with an achingly gorgeous bouquet that appeared to have been hurriedly created. Wild violets, dahlias, and forget-me-nots. Her favorites. He acknowledged. "I know I have a lot to make up for. And all I'm asking for is another chance to prove to you that I mean it this time." Brooke had a glint in her eyes. "You did that already." He moved forward and grasped her hand. And for the first time, she truly trusted him as she leaned in beneath the light of 1,000 tiny lights. Silence is the lifeblood of certain towns. Others are on secret. It turned out, however, that Wren Hollow flourished on second chances. Additionally, there may have been some interference by Sheila Snoops.